they've done so much. John came up to me and I was like, hello, I'm Todd, and he goes, we've worked together before, because he's worked with everyone, because that's just how it works when you're in the businesses.
At some point or another.
Yeah, so this is one of his voice demos.
Here's the man who married the same woman 107 times.
Jack Lemmon, Tim Robbins, Lily Tomlin, Tom Waits, Ann Archer, Robert Downey Jr., Huey Lewis, Lyle Lovett.
Hi out there, GB land. I'm a Jolly Rancher. Ho, ho, ho. Yeah, a Jolly Rancher food sticks candy free and food at table cereal.
And its cousin up on Willis Road kept the whole family fed for over a year on a single roof.
Western Union, the fastest way to send money worldwide.
Can you say split personality? Whoa, look out! He's a fast-talking, hard-scheming, larger-than-life hero. He's the Mask.
When you buy your kids a $2.79 cheeseburger Happy Meal, they can choose a cool Transformer figure or an adorable Littlest Pet Shop toy in special boxes with punch-outs or trading cards, one with each Littlest Pet Shop Transformers Happy Meal. So, when Country Style introduced the Cafe Classico, European-style specialty coffees and exquisite desserts, they caught my attention.
Pulmonär in Jobben, Vackla Löwen, Music's min according slogan.
You are invited to the jungle, along with your sales and marketing staff. Mark it down now in your calendar.
These are the faces of some very important Canadians. The faces of our children. That's why we fund national programs on street proofing, bicycle safety, fire prevention, and traffic safety. And now, we are reaching out to keep even more kids safe.
Hunt for Red October, you will like it. Conrad, it's Boy Meets Girl. When Harry met Sally and Pretty Woman, Boy ran school, go shopping, Turner and Hooch's Dobbs, a fun cannibal woman, you have a cottage jungle of death. Well, that's a mouthful. Bad influence, good movie. Ghostbusters 2's a heck of a good slime flashback. Oh, wow, man. Hard to kill, easy to watch. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, music, cowabunga, Lucas talking.
The EnviroPack has less packaging than the 1.5-liter Downy bottle.
Dude, man, I eat my bodies.
See, I think that's John. I think when I listen to that, it makes me think about, because every time I'm sure we all get a lot of people that are like, how do I get into business? How do I do it? But I think it's because of demos like that, where it doesn't sound like a lot of fun. It sounds like a lot of fun, but there are still deadlines and budgets and clients and all of those things. But those, you don't think about that when you get to hear how much fun you're having on the mic.
It is fun. The only part that isn't fun is there's a lot of competition, and everybody's duking it out with everybody else, and you kind of think that for every one you get, there are 100 gigs that you don't get.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But I guess sometimes that makes the conquests all the sweeter.
But one of the things that puts you in that echelon of the people that consistently work a lot, and there's a lot of those people, but what puts you there is having consistency and versatility, and a command over your versatility. Like, you could find your way back to that one voice that you did. You can reverse engineer it. There's a lot of people, so many people are so talented, and they can imitate things that they've heard, but you have to often be able to make, like, if there's a famous character and they use that as a prototype, something like the Peter Griffin character, you need to be able to make, like, the brother-in-law or the sister of that character. You need to, because that character's already cast. So unless you're going to, have them assassinated and replace them or something.
Which there's a Groupon for right now.
There is.
That's mine. But I mean, you're the same way. I mean, you have a versatility too, and you guys had not heard this, I bet. I want to. I get excited hearing
This ain't gonna be a problem for us, is it, Vinny?
Nah, don't worry about it. I got it all taken care of, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Luke, you must remember, a true gentleman never leaves a puzzle unsolved.
This is the day that we've long awaited. This is the hour if a Todd would come.
It was an accident, I swear. Jimmy wasn't feeling so well, you see. He was in pain and couldn't sleep.
They even tried using a voice recording.
Bitte anschnallen allen Sicherheitsgürtel.
That means please buckle up. I'm supposed to turn this until I hear a pin drop. Okay, then I'll be a lookout.
Rabbit! Winterpoo's looking for you.
The
Frog just wanted to give you guys a heads up. See, there's a lot of imitators out there, you know, doing imitations.
I recall the heroism of you and your family when demon-worshipping orcs invaded your duchy.
It is from little Madeline Stafford.
Madeline, did she have a Christmas request?
She did, actually, sir. I thought that you would probably want to read it for yourself.
Dear Santa.
Yeah.
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 There we go. That's great. That was really nice. Now, do you guys remember your very first gigs? What was your first one, John? Your first one?
My first voice gig.
Yeah.
It wasn't my first gig. I was doing on-camera work. Did a lot of on-camera work before. I must sort of blow my own horn here. Is that I started my early on-camera work was a series that ran. You know, most of you know I'm a Canadian, and this was for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And I worked with John Candy, Dan Aykroyd, Gilda Radner, Dave Thomas, Marty Short. It was like
All the
that
greats.
was the cast,
Yeah.
you know, and me. And yeah, it was called Coming Up Rosie, and the Corporation Internet's wisdom destroyed all the videos, and of course it was a time of video they recorded over them. There were a few little snippets apparently left, but that was a really wonderful time. What an experience.
But somebody's
And-
mother's wedding video got saved. They
Yeah,
just taped over
probably.
yours.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So my first voice gig was for a jeans shop, and I had an agent who said, I like your voice, and you're always doing these character things, and are you interested in doing some voice work as well as you're on camera? I said, yes, well, of course. And this was a long time ago. The producer actually came to the agency to interview me. When does that happen? You know, it's like, well, tell them to be here in 20 minutes because the sushi's going to be here, and then when that gets here, I stop. So,
Yeah.
but so he came and he talked to me and he said, here's one thing, and one was like a southern sort of stereotypical drawl, nondescript, right? And I can't remember what the other one was for, and he said, yeah, it's really, really good. You free tomorrow? I said, yes. He said, okay, here's the place, blah, 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 blah. That was that.
Wow.
And the rest was relatively meteoric. I had a rapid rise to level 1.
I slept my way to the middle.
Yes.
What about you, Chris?
For me, I remember exactly what it was. I had gone to I was in Salt Lake City, where I still live, and I go back and forth to Los Angeles, and sometimes out to Seattle, and I record voiceovers there, and then I do things from my home studio or from one of 6 bigger studios in Salt Lake that you would never know are recording studios from the outside of the building. They don't like to advertise. We have millions of dollars worth of equipment. And they have they're still using basically the covered wagon of technologies. They still use the ISDN line, which is a dedicated phone line.
Man.
Yeah.
They
So
still insist on that kind of thing for some reason. But I remember an agent, Linda Behrman, who worked at Sutton Barth Venari in Los Angeles. She and her husband moved to Utah because he wanted to run a restaurant and ski instead of living a lower middle class lifestyle in Santa Barbara. And you come to Utah and it's like, I'm rich. So
I'll get 2 gallons of milk today.
no one can stop me. One's just for my face. And of course she quickly got tired of not working, so she joined an agency there, and we had their first voiceover division in the early 90s, basically in Utah. That was a real voiceover division, because before that it was just radio guys in broadcasting that were doing all the voiceovers. And I bugged her every day for 6 months to put me in voiceover, and she was the first person not to blow sunshine up my keister and tell me I was wonderful and talented. She was like, so? I was like, I want to do voiceover. She was like, so?
Get in line.
Yeah, get in line. Lots of people
Aren't you
want to
that
do
guy
it.
that bought 2 gallons of milk?
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
do you need me?
Yeah. And she basically said, look, take a workshop with a pro and get a demo together. And she was right. But for some reason, I couldn't get my head around that. I was like, I can't afford a workshop, but I don't know how to put a demo. So instead, I just bugged her every day for 6 months, 5 days a week. Until she sent me on an audition. She was like, I don't even think you're right for this, but go do this audition. And I got it. I went into the studio, and it had already been cast by a voice actor who I love dearly. His name's Chris Hansen, and he's got one of those 8 balls voice. He just
Wait,
sounds
Chris
like he's got-
Hansen, like, have a seat.
He's got
what
no.
are you doing? Okay.
He's a guy who sounds like he's got 4 pair. It's like his high voice is hello there. Basically, yeah, it would cause all your sphincters to dilate. And it's a very low frequency. And he had this part, it was an industrial voiceover for CD-ROM. That's how long ago this was. CD-ROM. And it was for chiropractic care. It was back care. And they were making a cartoon on it, like Backman. That's right?
That's very clever.
Yeah, very, very clever. And me automatically doing the character, me doing with my tiny little throat, my tiny little voice, making my version of a superhero is automatically funny because I don't truly have a deep voice. So they ended up recasting Chris Hansen, who truly had this great deep voice. They were like, yeah, we're giving it to Chris Miller. And I was like,
He's
and
putting his rifle together with
yeah,
his
yeah. Oh no, that's fine. That's fine. But I got that voiceover, and I remember also having to read on the spot words I'd never seen before. And the first word that I had read, the multisyllabic word that was confusing and made the directors go like that, and their finger came off the talkback button because they were ready to correct me, is when I went, spondylolisthesis. I had to say that in the script, and I remembered coming up to it, my brain going, holy shit, I don't know how to say that. And then I just was like, sound it out, hooked on phonics, and I said it, and I happened to be right. And after that, I started doing tons of voiceover work, and I've been doing that for 25 years now, primarily making a living doing voiceover work. And I occasionally do film and television in between. I just did a Rob Reiner film, and I got to, which is one of the few times I've gotten starstruck, because Rob Reiner is like, that's my first memories of childhood and television and great writing. And
So would you guys say that, like, for you, Rob Reiner, and for you, the SNL cast, essentially, those are like were those the first times where you got to work with people that you admired and respected?
Well, you know what? They were all just starting.
They were just
at the
young.
time.
Okay.
They hadn't done Saturday Night Live.
Oh, okay.
None of them had moved on to SCTV.
They-
None of that had happened. I moved on to SCTV with them in terms of.
were they part of the Canadian contingent of Second City?
Yes, they were.
They were all improv
Yeah,
actors.
it was that whole group.
Wow. Could you
I
tell?
can tell you a funny story.
Yeah.
John Candy and I became very, very tight buds, and did a lot of things for 2 years. A lot of things. And I'm asleep one night, which is what I do at night generally. And, funny that, isn't it? Anyway, 1:30 in the morning, the phone rings, right? And I'd probably gotten to bed at 1:20 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And it's John Candy phone me. Todd, it's Johnny. You know that way you always remember that. Oh, yes, I always did that. That's the way he was in real life too. I said, what are you doing? I said, what? What are you doing? I said, I'm sleeping. Is everything okay? Yeah. Can you come down to the studio? So what are you putting me on? And he said, no, you gotta come to the studio. I said, well, what? And I'm still like, I don't know what the hell's going on. He said, we're trying to do this thing, this voice, and we can't get anybody. With none of us, we've all tried it. We can't get the voice. You can do it. Can you come down? Can you come down the street? I said, bing, dollar signs went up, and I said, yeah, I'll come down and do it. And so he said, okay, can you be here in half an hour? I said, yeah, where are you? So-and-so and so-and-so. And got dressed. I flew downtown, went in, and John was there, the producer was there, Eugene Levy.
Oh, yeah.
but all these guys that I'd worked with, all the SCTV people, and Catherine O'Hara, and
I love the pair.
and they said, here's the script, can you do this? And I picked it up and I went, there were 6 people who loved to watch television. and that was the
Yes!
that was my
The opening for the SCTV.
And then I did all the little interstitial bits
Yeah.
for it and stuff. So
Well, see, and what's great about that is I think that a lot of times, we've all done this Q&As again where people are like, how did you get into business? Subtext, how can I do it? And the thing about it is like all the stories are different. How we get in is all different. My story is not the same as Chris.
No.
It's not
Let's
the
hear
same
your
as
story.
John's.
Let's hear your story.
I mean, mine is voiceover was like the last thing that came in my thing, because I thought when I was a kid watching cartoons, I didn't know those were actors that did it. I thought that those were they let him out of his kennel, he did the episode, and they tasted, he got back in, and he waited till the next episode. They gave him pellets or whatever.
It's a Jurassic Park.
Yeah, he's getting angry. So you never think about it when you're a kid.
Oh my god.
And also when I was a kid, I got made fun of a lot for my voice. Everybody made fun of me for my voice. But when we were in class, and you know how they're like, who wants to read paragraph 3 on sonic synthesis or whatever? And I would always raise my hand. And eventually they were like, you should read. They always wanted me to read at that point. And when I was little, I remember this because I was in, what grade was I in? It was like fourth or fifth grade. They were like, you should read for a living. You should do this for a living. And I'm not thinking about it because I'm always getting made fun of for my voice. And so I started doing theater, and I loved it because it was the type of thing, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like when you put in that double-digit hour day, and you're tired, but the next day you're like, I'll do it again. I'm ready. And so that's how I knew I loved Call of Duty. But so I did stage, and then that led to on camera with film and television, and then voiceover was the last thing, and that was something that I never aspired to do. But I thought back when all my friends were doing things like dating. I was in my room alone by myself doing voices, and so
you're telling other people this.
So I would take the Indiana Jones trilogy, or I would take the Star Wars trilogy, and I'd be all the characters, and I'd do the whole movie all by myself. And I can just imagine my mother's very pragmatic. She came over from Vietnam during the war, so she's like, there's no messing around. So when she goes and she listens into my room and she just hears like R2 and 3PO and then a Wookiee and then like, but she knows no one's over but me. She's wondering what's going on.
Call the doctor.
Yeah. And so then she became a doctor. But actually, yeah. And so that, I mean, do you guys remember when your folks, your family were like, okay, I think John's in the right industry to make a living, or I think Chris can do this for a living? Because for me, it didn't come till like probably. It took many years before my parents were like, all right, you don't have to, or my mom was like, you don't have to be doctor, son. You don't have to be a lawyer.
You're like, Mom, I said come with me to the awards show.
Yeah, I know. It was like I literally have stuff published in these magazines, and I'm like, oh, look at the, da-da-da-da-da. And she's like, that's good, son. Set the table.
Right.
So you were like the Despicable Me child, unfortunately.
Yes, exactly.
It's kind of good. For those that have that, I think it's kind of good for you, where they're like, I don't know, where you have to be so self-driven that you literally have to be self-driven. Mom, take me to the audition. No, I'm not taking you to that.
I know. She's like, here's the gas, here's the brake. Just stay on a straight line.
See, I was on the other side because I announced to my mother and father when I was 4 that I was going to be an actor.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I remember. It's, you know how it's weird? Everybody's got a couple of flashes. You don't really remember you being young and growing up when you were there. I don't remember saying it, but I remember the moment of standing in front of my dad. And then I know I said that. Mm-hmm. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, it's like really a bizarre, just a moment.
It doesn't, you couldn't even put it in a bottle. It's like so ephemeral, but you remember that.
Yeah, I do. And I said, I'm going to be an actor. And he went, okay, sounds good if it's really what you want to do.
Oh,
and he never discouraged me.
No.
He never went over the top saying, hey, remember what you said. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
time's running out here.
Put the needle down, son.
You know,
You're
be
supposed to be memorizing
famous and
lines.
you make me, I want to retire.
Yeah.
I never got any of that stuff, but, you know, and that's all I geared myself towards through school, right?
Yeah.
You know, grade 5 doing the school, you know, breaking a piñata, I remember.
Oh, okay.
I was 5 or 6. How about Juanita? Remember my line?
Yeah.
How about Juanita?
Yeah.
And then, you know, that's all I ever did was like focus on being an actor.
Yeah.
Right.
And failed miserably in school. Like I was just a disaster.
Just not interested in anything else.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's how I feel like when I was in college. Like I was focusing so much on filmmaking and like theater that I look back on it now. I'm like, man, I wish I would have cracked the book in my sociology class once. Crack the book. Like I had this horrible.
Still do it. Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta do it because the thing about it is like, you know, my mom was always like, you know, what's your fallback plan? What are you gonna do? Which is like very smart of her because she comes from a totally different industry where she's a doctor, so she went to medical school and then she did her residency, and there's a very linear path on how that happens.
Yeah.
And for actors, you know,
It's anything but linear.
Anything. It's like you could literally, I mean, like, there are people that hailed a cab and then a guy's like, wait a minute, stop the cab. I like how you said that.
Yeah.
And then bam, they've got a show.
And
now on Netflix.
most people do think of Discovery like that, but the thing is those moments are
So rare.
often and also often led up to by. I like what Dustin Hoffman said when they questioned him at the end of Inside the Actors Studio, when he said, the thing is I'd be doing this anyway. I would be teaching at a community college. I would be doing community theater. It's like and you can tell he means that. And he talked about Picasso. He said, I loved what he said, which was, if they took away my paints, I would use pastels. If they took away my pastels, I'd use crayon. If they put me in a room and locked me away and took away my crayons, I would spit on my finger and draw on the wall.
Wow.
In other words, there's that compulsion.
That's an ingrained passion.
Yeah, there's a compulsion to do it. And for me, from the time when I was 3, I was honing in on what I was going to do, and I had it down by the time I was 5. That's just weird. But even before school. And what made me realize I wanted to be an actor is that everything that I saw, I wanted to be that for about 5 minutes until the next thing came along, which is good and healthy for like any kid. I'd see a show and I'd be like, I want to be a fireman. And my mom would go, why? Well, did you see the hat? And they got the truck and then the pole you go down? And then, I want to be a policeman. Why? Well, they got the uniform and the badge and the gun and the gun. So basically, wardrobe, props, set. So, you know, eventually I realized that that's what I wanted to be, because I wanted to be everything for 5 minutes and I really wanted to be it. And then I wanted to go on to the next thing.
And now as an actor, you can't be all those people.
Yeah. And in voiceover, you know what's even better is that I always was short and I looked young. I suddenly look I still look good for my age. I'm 71. But I was always told, well, you're not the right look to play this or to play that. Well, in voiceover, if you can do the voice, you can play anything. He's 6 feet tall in voiceover. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't matter, because if you can create the physicality of that character, you're not reined in by your look.
Well, I think what's cool about, you know, a lot of the cartoons, like, you know, what you were working on, John, with X-Men and Care Bears and things like that, is that nowadays I don't think there's time for fans to become super fans of one particular property, because by the time they're done with that property, there are 10 more that they've got to watch.
So much.
Back, you know, a couple decades ago, it was like, it was this show, maybe a couple of these shows, but it was a very finite amount of outlet for VO. Now it's like, man, you turn on Cartoon Network 24/7, there's some new show, and there's about 15 different Steven universes, and you know, Teen Titans and all. And so that's what, when you were talking about, and John's right, is that the competition is very fierce, but there's also so many different shows. But then at the same time, the adverse effect is that I can remember nearly every episode of the animated X-Men series, because and Batman the animated series.
That was it.
That was it. You watch that and the Power Rangers, and then,
Yeah.
but now it's like there's 10 different Power Rangers series.
Now it's the Cheesecake
And it's all
Factory
churned. I mean, it's churned out at a really rapid pace.
Yeah.
You know, production companies that are in on it are buying properties left, right, and center, whether they're going to use them or not. They're buying them up so someone else can't. They're scouring the internet to find someone who's created a little series, buying that series, stocking it away, and then working on that. And then they have teams of guys. I know that there are gals that work on developing these shows, and some make it and some don't. But like Toronto right now probably has 25 different animated series on the go.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like original voice, a prelay.
Wow.
Yeah. Things that are going. It's insane. But almost none of them are going to have any longevity because they're just churned out. The stories, there are 11 basic storylines, as we all know, and there's nothing to differentiate. A Disney dad is the same Disney dad. A Disney mom, kind of that. Oh, honey, you've cut yourself. Let me take a look at that. Ooh, that's worse than it looked. Right? It's like
It's just a Band-Aid
But that,
commercial instead of a
those
real character.
those characters, that mom is in every episode, right? I mean, a lot of it is because, to me, we do less cartoon and more animation. Yeah, I don't know if that's semantics, but there's less of that crazy Animaniacs-y.
Oh, you don't get
kind
that kind of
thing.
Randy Rogel music and things like that, and you know, a show where, you know, like the Animaniacs, where those songs are timeless and
Yeah, it's wonderful.
It takes Steven Spielberg to actually push something like that through, to do that in
did
this
you-
generation.
Yeah.
Did you guys know that, you know that song that Wacko sang, that where he names all the places, like,
my
you know,
gosh, that's
the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That song, so the dude that wrote that song, Randy, he was working on Batman the Animated Series. Well, he wanted to go work on Animaniacs because he heard this new show's coming. And they're like, no, you write Batman, this is a totally different show. So he wrote an audition song. That song was the audition song. And they're like, okay, come on board.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't have that kind of stuff anymore. It's
Very, very little. And when it does come out, it just jumps to the fore. Because
Yeah.
there's so much pap.
Mhm.
It's filler.
Yeah.
It's disappointing, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, not to demean actors, I mean, we're all grabbing for it too, though. It's like,
I think
you know,
what
my
it-
perspective as I get older is changing in terms of that, you know, what are we working on?
You
Is
think
it
about
stuff-
what do I want to make rather than I gotta get a gig.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
what you're talking about with the content that's coming out, I think you've got a big vat, a Netflix vat, and they're like, okay, we got to fill this with 64 ounces of content. Now, about 10 of it is going to be something we're going to like. The other 54 ounces is just to fill that
to-
container. You know,
Pectin.
yeah,
It's pectin.
That's right. Yes, pectin. That's in your cough drops, by the way.
Yes.
So-
And in all your jab.
Yeah.
So basically throwing crap at the wall.
And see
Yeah,
what
kind
sticks. Kind of, yeah. I mean, because if you think about this, you think about now something like, how many guys have seen Monster High, things like that. Now we work on Monster High for 4 years, and you can tell when that comes out that doesn't come out every week or every month. The movies come out every 2 years or something like that. So because we take time, it's like with Pixar. Pixar takes its time. Incredibles 2 is coming out, but they have it was 5 years. They reduced it to 4 years. 4-year turnaround on those movies. So you know that's why do those movies always get nominated for an Academy Award every time they come out?
Because they're amazingly good.
Yeah, they take the time.
I know.
Well, when you're doing a 26 episode series, though,
Yeah.
be it a dubbing series or prelay. Prelay means you do the voice, then they animate to it, as opposed to dubbing, which we have the picture and you dub. You put in a new language into it. Just for those who don't know. Sorry.
Well, with the 26 episodes and
Yeah,
you're
the
creating
26
the character.
Yeah. Thanks. You're hired. Walk me home, would you? Here's a whorehound candy. I just guessed myself. So, I mean, it's like you're just filling the space, as Todd said. It's that vat of stuff. And it's like you can watch, is there a difference between an Arthur and a Franklin? I mean, when you look at those two shows, honest to God, Franklin goes to the zoo, Arthur goes to the zoo. I mean, it's
but
like,
on a different day.
it's a different day, and they're wearing different clothes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they
And then
swear.
Caillou, and boy, that Caillou's a whiner.
Oh.
Now I have a question for you guys.
I voiced her right to Caillou.
He's a whiner,
He
that
is.
kid.
If you guys weren't able to if you woke up and they're like, okay, entertainment industry's gone, and you had to do some other, but you get to start over. It's years ago, and you had to go a different route. Is there another thing that you would like to try?
I'd own parking lots and storage units.
Yeah,
No.
make that money while you sleep.
Yeah, that's right. Just,
Like for me, it would be like animal stuff. Like I would open up a giant
Butcher?
yeah, butcher in the front, conservation
I love that.
in the back.
No, you can't keep them all.
Yeah, yeah, people gotta eat. Something like that. Or I'd get like a armed army of guys to go over to like places where animals are being hunted and like make the hunters the hunted.
Yeah.
Go get 'em.
Ooh, hunting.
Close down marine land.
Yeah, there we go.
yes. You know what? I've always had I love culinary arts. I've always wanted to run a restaurant.
Oh yeah?
And that's work. I've worked in restaurants before, and they're money pits for the first 5 years. But it's so creative because you're creating an experience for somebody. If people need to eat, they can eat anything, and they can eat. But I love the same way as composing a great piece of media for someone to enjoy and have an experience. It's the same thing with a dining experience.
With the colors you use and the drizzle.
The display.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just it's taking care of someone, and it's being able to kind of be a fly on the wall and watch them have have a moment that they can't just tell their friends, oh, it was great, and they can go, you're right, it's delicious. Like, you had to be there.
Yeah.
And you can say, I'll have what she's having.
Yes. Exactly.
I am actually in my other life a landscape gardener. I live rurally, and I go out into my bush, and I'll cut out an area and excavate a big rock and bring it back on a dolly and put it in my garden and I've built big stone walls. I love it.
Now, are you able to like scope out a piece of land and go like, okay, I think I'm gonna do you just bam, you got it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you have a
But I think-
spatial awareness mind.
I guess.
That's
I have
amazing.
no object permanence mind, but that's cool that you have something useful.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, you don't get crushed hands like this from being an actor.
Yeah.
No more hand demos for
No
me.
hand modeling.
Now, have you ever been stumped where you're like, I gotta YouTube this, I gotta Pinterest this, I don't know how to build a moat right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Then I'll usually try. Like or I'll try, and then if it doesn't work, I'll tear it apart. I built like a 5-foot wide fire pit with rock field stones.
Yeah.
Built it. I dug it down 2 feet because I only have 2 feet of soil and I hit limestone where I live. I dug it down, built it, and then said, I don't like this.
Take it out.
Pulled it all apart. Rebuilt
How
it.
long does that take?
A few days.
That's it?
Yeah.
Because
Well.
the construction on 405, you would think
Yeah, I
they're
know.
building a masterpiece.
I know. Because they're government employees.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
You get a private contractor in. Yeah, we can do that, but we're gonna have coffee,
Yeah,
and then we'll
yeah.
get that done.
Now, do you guys remember the worst well, it could still be in the industry, but non-acting job you've done? What was that job? Mine was I went and worked at a grocery store as a bag boy. It was my very first job outside of acting because a girl that I liked work there. And I thought, well, why don't I go to the place that she hates being to see if she'll like me? And that did not work. And what sucked is I found it wasn't one of those TV series that's like, okay, it's 13 episodes, we'll see what happens by the end of it. I found out at episode 1, she didn't like me, but I'd already signed. I'm like, I'm working here. And when I knew I didn't want to be a grocery boy is because I had been working and moving boxes and restacking groceries, cleaning things and cleaning the register, and I was like, okay, surely it's been 4 hours. It literally had been 20 minutes. And so I knew that was not the path for me. So.
I ended up working in a warehouse building windows and sliding glass doors, which are the heaviest things in the universe, loading and unloading trucks, and working around a lot of mouth breathers at that particular one. And I remember I'd come in the morning, I'd be like, hey, and the greeting every morning was like, fucking A. I was like, yes, good morrow to you too. I was ready to slit my wrists and do push-ups after about 6 months of that. And I remember one day, like many other jobs, there's a list of about 1,000 jobs where it was either telemarketer or doing dairy back at Dan's grocery store, or where the day came where something in my brain snapped the same way that I knew when I was a child, I want to be an actor, I want to be, like, you just know it. And that epiphany happened at every other job, and I would just, one person would have a request of me, or they'd want to yell at me, and I would go, nope. Where are you going? I would just leave.
And then you make that noise?
Yeah. And I get.
Oh, you want to go?
Yeah. And I get a call, and they'd be like, "You're not getting your last check," and I go, "Keep it." Click. And then
right when the click,
just joy in my heart at going, I'm free.
Now, did you drive away fast enough to where the heat from the explosion of the building, you didn't feel it at that point? I imagine you got good at it after a while.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. You gotta just time those things out.
I had 2 bad experiences. I'll tell you the lesser first, and it was working in a, you know that insulation, the what do you call it? The pellet insulation. What do you call
okay.
Where
they blow
the
it?
attic, yeah.
Oh, I know.
But they were bagging it up, and this little factory was full of that. And the guy, I remember the guy who worked there, his name was Paul. He was a French Canadian guy, and he thought
because he was dying.
He was. He was. He worked and coughed and gagged all day, and it's like, and I'm breathing this shit in, and I'm going, that's gonna be me if I stay here much longer. But that, even though that was really horrible, didn't compare to the one that actually made me made me actually cry. I had to steam wallpaper off. I was working in an old home for a friend of mine who said, I'll give you a job. You know, it's not the greatest job. I said, no man, listen, I'm broke. He said, okay, and he gave me, it was a hand steamer. And I had to hold it out and steam the wall, and then with the other hand, scrape the wallpaper and like up on ladders. And I've never been a tall guy. It's just like, this isn't something that just happened. I'm up on ladders and steaming, and my arm was killing me, and I was scraping it, and it was like, I so desperately didn't want to do this. It was just, it's like I would rather starve. And I did it for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And I went to the guy and I said, buddy, I don't want to disappoint you, but I can't do it.
Yeah.
He said, no, I understand. It's cool. Fucking hell.
He's like, but I'm gonna need you to finish the banquet hall first.
Yeah, right.
Wow. Yeah, that made me think of another job. One time I was, I was speaking of the telemarketing thing, before Uber Eats and all those kind of places, you could call this service, this is when I was like 17, I think, because there was another person that I liked, and but they liked me back. So that's why I went to this place. But you would call if you want to order from Fridays, you call us and we'll pick it up and deliver it to you if they don't deliver it. And so the boss hated me. And so he would call me, so it's like cubicle, and here's the window, and he'd call me, but I didn't know he was calling me, just to hear how I answer the phone. and I'd look to my right and I'd see his eyes, and then he'd go click, and he'd let the blinds go up, and he'd walk to his office. And he goes, see me on your next break. And of course, that always means great things. You know you're gonna get a raise.
Yeah.
And so he sits down, and he goes, you know what straightened me out was the Army. He's like, I think maybe you need the Army. And I'm like,
Maybe you should go back.
Yeah. Well, I was like, well, you know, you make a good point. I mean, my dad and my grandfather both were dishonorably discharged. And I haven't done that yet. So, but it didn't work out. That was a really shitty job. My God.
And were you fired at that moment?
I wasn't fired. I quit milliseconds before he fired. So, technically, I was not fired.
That's the last day job I had was as a coffee salesman, and it was 100% commission. And I remember the boss calling me into his office, and he sat behind his big oak desk, and he's like, "No, Christopher, you need to make a decision. I need you in here for 8 hours a day." And I went, "It's commission only."
Yeah.
What do you mean? "Well, you're taking up space in our desk pool." And I went, "You have 20 empty desks in there. I'm one of 3 dudes in there. There's desks." And he kept going, "Well, you have to decide what it is that you want to do. Do you want to work here, or do you want?" And I went, and then, yeah, that was.
I smell oak.
Pull the head buzzer on your mark one little mark. Next time. And then that you could never live in this town again because you worked at all the places and they've all been destroyed. Actually, I met a fan once because you meet very interesting fans along the way, and I asked him what he did, and he was a demolitionist, and so he would go and destroy buildings when when they needed to go down. And I would ask him how long it would take to prep these buildings, and he's talking about wrapping them and how you prep a skyscraper versus prepping a house to where when you blow it up, no debris goes anywhere except straight down. And then I was asking him more about this, and I said, I go, "Man, that must be really loud." And he goes, yeah, it's loud. And I go, what kind of ear protection do you wear? He goes, "Oh, I don't wear any." And I'm like, well, how close are you? He goes, I'm pretty close. I go, "But you don't wear anything over your ears?" He goes, "Well, I need to be able to hear how the explosion happens." I go, "So at what point, what are you going to do at that point?" So let's say the skyscraper's going down, you hear something wrong in the explosion, you're gonna go and hold up the building, or what's gonna happen, Superman? You're gonna run, right? But he's like, "Oh yeah, you make a good point." I go, "Yeah, how long you been doing this?" But no, he'd been doing it a while.
I love that was the moment where you went, "Maybe I haven't thought this through."
Yeah. It's like what are you hearing in the explosion where you're like, "Oh, this is gonna be a bad one." Like, what are you gonna do at that point? Instagram it. This hashtag, this was before.
Stop, drop, and roll, fellas.
Yeah. Now, do you guys? Now that was the dark part of our lives. You guys remember, what was your best favorite vacation that you've been, or favorite city that you've been to?
You go first.
Well, you know what? Favorite vacation? I love going to the resort in Cancun. There's a Riviera Maya resort there that is really hammocks everywhere. The word of the day is tequila all the time. I mean, I'm saying 7 a.m. and they're like, would you like tequila? And I'm like, "Sir, you were trying to give me a drinking problem." And I don't ever do it. Well, the mimosas, they have orange juice in it. But
they serve it with a raw egg in it.
Yeah, so there's your protein. But they have the world's the world's largest natural aquarium. So it's an aquarium that is, there's no man-made structure. It's all kind of it uses the rocks and cliffs that are there, and then they have ropes that partition certain areas off. But you can go and swim and hang out with the manatees and feed them. And the best part, my favorite part actually of that place, is that the trainers really respect the animals. It's because it's a sanctuary. And so they're telling me about the manatees, these big, because they're sea cows. They're these giant, their eyes, I don't know how their eyes are like specks of pepper. I don't know how they're seeing anything out of these. But they come up to you and they do a little nibble to see what you are. And you bleed to death. But but if they don't want to do something, they don't make them. They're just like, well, the manatee's full. He doesn't want to eat your lettuce that you're giving him, even though you got it from Whole Foods. But what was interesting was when you're watching the trainers when they don't know you're watching them. So like you can sit in a hammock and look at stuff all throughout the park. You got to look it up online. It's called Sehal, and it's this beautiful natural aquarium. And so I'm watching the trainers that are working with the dolphins, and this is right after they've done a private dolphin thing. And they don't know that anyone's watching them because people have gone off and it's kind of in a little corner. And they're smiling and petting the dolphins. The dolphins are having a good time swimming around. They're getting on their back to get their belly rubbed. And that was my favorite moment because I realized, like, wow, these people really care about these animals as opposed to, like, you know, that Reagan skit where he's like, okay.
Yeah.
All right, come on. It's totally not like that.
Yeah.
And so that was my favorite.
That's nice.
Yeah, it was very nice.
That's great.
What about you guys?
Me. Well, I have two places that I really like. I was in Portugal a number of years ago, and I loved the country. Portugal was just fabulous. I loved the people, but the thing I liked the most there was the food. I must tell you, amazing bread, amazing cheese, great sulfite-free wine. And the way
so
they
you don't
make
need
their
the ULO filter.
you just need lips. And their chicken it's frango. It's young chicken. It's flat. It's the first time I'd ever seen flattened chicken, and it was I bought it. We got in late, and of course their dinner thing is different. They eat late, and then they close at the restaurants, and it's like I'm used to eating, breakfast, lunch, dinner at standard North American
somewhat, yeah.
time. Again, I found one little chicken place, and it smelled so good, and I took it back. And my wife and I ate this chicken like it had harmed us. and it was just amazing. But I must say that despite that, I've gone for 5 of the last 6 years to a small town in central Mexico, a mountain town called San Miguel de Allende.
San Miguel de Allende is beautiful.
It's
Guanajuato?
gorgeous. It is. And I spent a couple of months there every winter.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
beautiful.
Are you a cook?
A little bit.
Okay.
My wife is a little bit. Actually, my daughter is a professional.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So.
We're coming over.
Yeah.
Man, oh man.
Wow. Okay,
You don't
right
get
on.
this from. Hey.
All the chickens harm me.
Yeah.
What about you, Chris?
I just keep this layer of subcutaneous fat to save the ladies from temptation.
I'm doing you a favor.
I'm gorgeous under this. My favorite was when I was in high school. We stayed for a month in San Miguel de Allende. And that's back when I didn't drink, and I was the one kid that stayed with the family that owned the liquor store in town. All the other kids were so pissed. I was just like, no, I don't know.
Well, you get pissed for about $1 there.
That's true.
That's
right.
Honest to God.
Yeah, yeah. But I loved San Miguel de Allende. Most of the time for me, vacation is I send my wife and the kids, and they go see her mother in England, and I end up working on a film and doing a voiceover.
Nice.
I'm like, look, I don't have to go to bed or clean anything, and it's just me.
Just you leave the barbecue on continually.
That's right.
Don't even bother turning it off.
Don't even
Other person's got to cook.
Keep that meat going.
That's right. And I would say that the other place I've been to that was absolutely stunning is I love going to Seattle, but Seattle I go there to end up working, and often
That
I
Pike Place Market is awesome.
Yes,
Yeah.
and on Olive, right up the street from there, are all the Tom Douglas restaurants.
Ah, okay.
And I usually stay at the Mayflower Park Hotel, which is this beautiful 100-year-old hotel. And then in the morning, walk down Olive and you stop at the Dahlia Bakery, and they've got these little egg sandwiches. They make their own English muffins, and they've got the roasted asparagus on them,
Yeah.
Prosciutto, and there's a Starbucks every 5 feet.
And the original Starbucks.
Yeah.
The original Starbucks. And I always get like a mocha no whip and a little egg sandwich, and I go down to Bad Animal Studio and sit on a comfy couch and wait for the session, and they're like, "Is there anything else you want?" I'm like, "No, that's all right." And they're like, "That's okay, we'll still bring you something," you know. And I absolutely love it. To me, it's almost a vacation to be in recording studios, because it always feels like it's 6 o'clock at night all the time. And I like being at recording studios besides mine, even though I've made mine comfortable at home, because there's a professional working the board, and they do what they do instead of what the industry asks for now, which is, hey, be a one-man band where you're your own casting director, you're your own engineer, and you act, and you send me the... It's like, oh, gosh. So it's a vacation to me to work on projects where they've paid for a team of professionals.
Sure. Yeah.
That's my favorite thing.
Now, with you guys, a favorite thing, do you guys have like a favorite piece of memorabilia that you've been given, or something that you acquired from something you worked on?
Interesting question. You know what's really neat? These guest things that they gave us. You know, it's a bottle opener, and it's like they're individually engraved.
Yeah, these are badass.
I mean, normally.
Yeah, I got my.
I had a big stack of the con badges, and I sold them at a con charity thing for the thing when they have the auctions.
Yeah.
Right. And so I had none left. I'm not going to keep these anymore. Right. I'm keeping this one.
Absolutely.
That's
absolutely.
It's a really neat one.
It's useful. That's a
Well, it's
multitasker.
useful,
That's right.
but it's like quite brilliantly unique.
It is.
And you know, how often do you get? I mean, for me, being a Canadian, guest of honor, HONOR.
Honor.
Do you have like a do you have a favorite memory from being on the other side of the mic directing, that maybe there was some episode you worked on that was like, oh, that was my jam, or some group of actors?
Most of I must tell you, most of the fun experiences truly are in the studio. Being a director, it's different, because there's an all-pervading sense of being very serious. You can joke, but you got to also realize that you're. I always say I have an actor's heart and a producer's head when I'm a director, right? And you've got that production thing happening when you're a director. You're running late. People are, laughing. Now when people laugh in the studio and they get really carried away, which you've got to let go occasionally.
Right.
When it
You're like,
happens.
okay, meters.
Yes, oh boy. Right, because you're overtime, and overtime means over budget. And so there isn't as much funny stuff as a director because of that pressure. But in the studio, I've had times where the ones I like most, and it's happened a few times, is when you start laughing and you can't stop, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, and you get a break, and you come back, and somebody looks at you and says one word, and damn it, you are back to where you started. As if you.
Yeah, those are fun.
But that's in a general sense. It's happened probably half a dozen times where we're crying.
Yeah.
And I love those.
Yeah, those are.
Those you hurt when it's done.
And sometimes they come from a surprising place, because like a lot of times you get to work with actors that you know of their reputation and stuff, but you don't really get to experience them until you're in the work environment with them. And some of them are really funny.
Yeah.
The guys that I just never, like David Kay, I was like, damn, that's a funny guy.
Yeah.
I didn't know it, because his VO that he does, he's we work on Ben 10 together, so he's Grandpa Max, and so when he's in there, he's hilarious, dude. He's from Toronto, actually, but he's a great guy. What about you, Chris? Do you have any
Well, first of all, memorabilia. I tend to collect. I end up accidentally collecting things that just mortify my wife. Like
That's a spleen, honey.
Yeah. No, mine is on a lot of movies. Like I did this series of films called Mythica, where I'm Hammerhead the dwarf, and a guy who worked with Rick Baker did my makeup on me, and so I've got a prosthetic nose that's based on mine. And you can see how I have this little line. Well, you make a bigger version of that, and I look like I have like a big ass nose. And then these giant ears and beard braids that they put in my beard that was already long. And I come home and I have to get the rest of my makeup. And my wife opens my nightstand drawer and there's a nose, ears, and beard braids laying in the drawer. And I just hear her go, "Oh, good Lord!" like that.
She's like, honey, what is this? It's like, it was my previous wife that sassed me.
That'll learn ya. It always ends up being stuff like that, or when they did an entire head cast of me for a Disney Channel movie, for Return to Halloween Town, and I'm Troll in that. I'm the third, and so there's this entire face cast done by a team out of Hollywood, and they had to make 3 of those every day, and they would have to put every bit of it on me, and then these giant ears, and same kind of effect, like a very exaggerated sense of my ears and my nose. And I remember my dad coming to set one day, and I could see him and I could hear him. My dad's about 78 right now, so this was a couple years ago. He was about 72. And I kicked open the door of my trailer and I went, "This is you in another 10 years," like that, you know.
And he aged 10 years.
Yeah, he laughed pretty hard.
What's the longest that you've been in the makeup chair for?
It's usually on average that's 3.5 hours.
Yes.
And yep, that's generally what it takes. And most of it is not putting the prosthetics on you. It's making the seams go away, and then doing all of the texturing and things like that. And then you have to recalibrate your acting, because you go to make a face like this, like that, and you do it with the makeup on and it doesn't do anything. It goes, nothing moves. And so in order to make yourself in the makeup look like you're going like that, you have to go behind it to pull the latex enough. And then you better recalibrate before you go for your next on-camera audition for a movie of the week.
Yeah.
Where you'll go,
and they're like, "We'll call you."
yeah, that's nice.
It's a little big.
Yeah.
It's a little big.
You better cast me. Maybe you haven't heard about me. When I quit jobs.
You hear my car, and then all of a sudden you smell gasoline. No. I like what you were saying too. I've had the privilege of, I horned myself into casting and then directing voice sessions for a couple of animated films. And one of the privileges of my life was that I ended up directing Ken Sansom, who was a mentor of mine. And he was the voice of Rabbit for Winnie the Pooh for many years. And if you had ever met him, he just passed away about 2 years ago. And anyone who met him, even if you had 2 grandpas who were the best grandpas in the whole world, you'd go, "Would you be my 3rd grandpa?" I mean, if you met him, you would just adore him. And he was just one of the loveliest, most generous people, and had a genuine warmth to him. With everyone he met, I would watch him interact with people. And directing him was amazing. And I remember having a couple of moments where I went, "What? I'm directing Ken Sansom? That's absurd. Okay, I guess that's a sign of the apocalypse now. Does the world end? Because why am I directing Ken Sansom?" But you're absolutely right, because you end up you wear a different hat, and you're thinking, I need to have 3 usable takes that the producer likes of each line. I'm going to need an ABC of this, and you know.
I also feel like I'm sometimes stifling creativity. Someone will do something that's will ad-lib a little something in a delivery.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, that's really, really funny, but can you give me one that's like scripted?
Yeah.
Because the writer may be coming in.
Yeah.
I do like to also sometimes, when I know that the writer's in the room, I'll test them if we're already kind of friends, and I'll just go, wrote this shit. Oh, hi! They're in there.
Well, what you were talking about with, third grandpas, like, I feel that way, like, with Rob Paulson.
Yes.
I feel like he is just the sweetest guy, and so grateful, because a lot of times we get to work with a lot of people that have a reputation, good, bad, or the other.
That precedes them,
Yeah,
for sure.
That totally precedes them, and so I think what's great about it is the fact that in general, and I assume it's the same for you guys, we generally run into really great people, and unfortunately it makes that one bad egg stand out, but they're super rare, I feel like.
Yeah.
But it's really great to be able to work with people that you respect and admire, because then everyone can have fun and create, and everyone's job is better because of that. So, and when you work with the shitheads, that's hard.
And boy, they're there.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like if you're making kimchi in your kitchen. That's what it's like when you step into the booth with someone that you don't want to work with. And in fact, sometimes people will say like, well, what's a project that, it's so odd sometimes how people view what we do, in the sense that they're like, if this show came back, would you work on it again? Or what was the least favorite show that you worked on? And for me, I think that the majority of it is not that there's a project that I've regretted working on ever. It's, if anything, it was like that one person, that one
relationship that made it difficult.
Yeah, that one thing. But other than that,
you know, I had an experience with that, where I went through 5 of the Professor Layton games doing my favorite thing. I got cast for it. I loved it every time. We were efficient. We were creative. We did great work. And then they switched it for me to go to another studio in Los Angeles, and I did my homework, and I realized who I'd be working with. There was this person that was going to be there directing these sessions, and I was all excited. And then I met them, and whether they did or didn't, I don't know, but they must have not done their homework on me, because they started in so over the top being negative that I was a little shocked. In fact, I thought they were joking because it was so ridiculous the way they were talking. But I was like, oh, that's good. And then I was like, oh shit, she's not kidding. Okay. And she was berating my performance, saying I don't sound like Professor Layton, and that's not how you say that, and that's not how and I found myself going, what the hell, I'm the only one who's ever done it. So if it comes out of my mouth, that's how it sounds. So she basically didn't know that I was the guy who had always done it, and she was saying I didn't sound like me. And I had to go to dinner that night with a British actress who does voiceover, and beautiful model too.
And you had to go to dinner.
I did. Well, yeah. I did, because I was in town.
Yeah, we give and
I was
we
in town.
give.
Yes, I know. You do what you must. And she said, "How was your session?" And I said, "Well, before I tell you, say mask for me." And she went, "What do you mean, mask?" And I went, "Are you sure it isn't mosque?" And she went, "Where Muslims go to worship." And I said, "No. I was told by a director to say mosque over again, because I was saying mask wrong." And being British, to her, this is like saying what a jerk. She was like, "What a C word." Like immediately out of her mouth. And I said, "What do I do?" And she said, "You'll have to be passive aggressive. You're in LA. Don't be aggressive or you'll get fired." And so I showed up, and the next day, I said, I started telling stories. I was like, "Oh yeah, I needed a cup of tea." And I said, "Yeah, I went to this restaurant last night, and I was with my friend Siobhan Flynn. Do you know who she is?" I was doing the name dropper game. And she, "No, I don't know." And I was like, "Oh, well, she did the BAFTA Awards, and she did this and that. But anyway, she was saying to me, she went to Cardiff College, and my wife went to Cardiff College, and whenever she comes to town, we never meet up with Siobhan, and it's just weird. I'm always with the British contingent here." I'm just putting things into her ear to make her go, "What?" And I see the wheels turn, and I go, "It's time for me to go back in the booth." And she went, and I thought, well, it'll happen within the hour. I'll just go back in the booth. She'll eventually ask me, because I could see the wheels turning. And before I shut the door to the booth, she goes, "Hang on a second. Your wife's from England?" And I went, "Yeah, so I hear the accent every day, but whatever, mosque."